Tell me about El Salvador.
Oh man, it was so amazing on so many levels. First of all, seeing sort of Bitcoin adoption was cool. Like, and certain parts of the country have more of it than others. But the other thing that was the most spectacular was the fact that so it was March of 2022 when Bukele, well, first he locked up about 30,000 guys in a day. And then after about 3 weeks, he got most like 65 out of 70,000 gang members locked up. 5,000 fled the country, roughly. So it's a nation of 6.5 million people. So roughly 1% of the population was causing all of the crimes. And what I didn't realize, in just about everybody in El Salvador was paying extortion to these gangsters. And it was roughly, and I had dinner with Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert, and they told me that $6 billion a year was paid in extortion money by El Salvadorians to these gangsters. Their GDP is 28 billion a year. So 6 billion of that was going to extortion money. So when he locked everybody up, it's basically like the whole country got a 20 to 30% pay raise.
But I like the way that we do it here in the United States. Like, they don't take bribes from us on the street level. We just send $4 trillion to Wall Street during the pandemic. So it's I feel like that's just more convenient.
It is, and it's a more sanitized way of sticking it to the American people on every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's none of this back alley, grease in the palms stuff.
No, it's very, very civilized form of fisting every American. So, yeah, I mean, so El Salvador, so there's this like renaissance happening in this country. I mean, it's really, and again, talking to Max and Stacey at dinner, they made a great point. They were in Berlin right as the wall came down, and they felt like it sort of had that vibe. So I went to a neighborhood where we would have been killed 18 months prior, and
how did, I mean, this might be getting too into the weeds, but how did they decide who were the criminals causing the most harm? And
it was pretty easy to determine because the gangs, they all had gang tattoos. I mean,
it's like the Home Alone with the wet bandits. They just, all the houses that were drenched in water were the.
And speaking of a government secret, a lot of them were incarcerated in mainly California prisons, where one of the gangs was the MS-13. So they literally in the California penal system would tattoo 13s on their face so they could know what gang was what in the prisons. And another gang had an 18. So these guys had 13s and 18s tattooed on their face. So it was like, yep, you right there. You're and
see, I went and got a tattoo, and I asked for a mermaid, and he just wrote crypt on across my back. And I don't like, is that gonna be bad later? Or
I think that could come back to haunt you, Lee, but I don't want to scare you. So yeah, it was, and these guys apparently did horrible stuff. I mean, they raped and murdered, and they killed pregnant women. I mean, it was awful stuff that they did, awful. So, some people are like, what about the human rights? And every El Salvadorian I spoke to was like, what about our human rights? What about what these awful guys were doing? Now, some of the people, the families of the gang members that were benefiting from the extortion money, they're probably the small percentage of people that aren't happy with what happened. But Bukele now has a 93% approval rating.
That's, I think last I checked, Biden's was 92, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's
just shy.
It's so close.
No, I think Biden's is down roughly at the same approval rating as gonorrhea.
Yeah, I think gonorrhea has actually done a little better, because at least to get gonorrhea, you have some fun.
To get Biden, this nation did not have any fun.
So it's